Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Douglas School Committee meeting on September 21st, 2022 at 7 p.m. I'll start by reading the mission statement. The Douglas Public Schools offers diverse learning experiences that meet the academic, social, physical, and emotional needs of all students. We provide a safe, supportive, and challenging learning environment in which students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of students. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call our student representative, Tia Ouellette, to come forward and say a few words.
Good evening. My name is Tia Ouellette, and I am in grade 7 at Douglas Middle School. The start of school has been a fun and busy time. Teachers spent the first days of school getting to know their students, and students getting to know their teachers. We learned our new schedules and practiced our new locker combinations. Teachers went over their classroom expectations and explained what we will be learning in their classes this year. Also, during the first few weeks, students completed their benchmarks testing. We will look back at these results later in the year and find out how much we learned. We have plenty of middle school students playing sports. 21 boys and girls are participating in cross country. 13 students are participating in boys JV soccer. 16 students are participating in girls JV soccer. 6 girls are playing JV volleyball, and 3 students are participating in golf. Last week we had community meetings where the high school color guard performed, and we tried to encourage new students to join. We also learned about activities we will have throughout the year. Tomorrow, members of the marching band will be performing at the Big E. This morning, Mrs. Miller presented mock trial to over 30 students who have been interested. It has been a fun and exciting start of the school year. Can I answer any questions? Thank you.
It was good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Nice job, Tia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open the floor to any public comments.
Does that include school committee members?
School committee members?
You'd have to come down and, as a resident.
Oh, okay, no.
Yeah.
The school committee welcomes public comment on items that are within the scope of the school committee's responsibilities. The public comment agenda item is reserved for this purpose. Anybody? No. Okay. Seeing as we have none, I will close public comment. And do we have any old business?
We do not.
New business?
Just superintendent's report that I'll dive right into.
All right. And I will turn it over to Dr. Beer.
So welcome, everyone. We're going to start off with introducing some of our new staff. We did this last year for the first time, where I had principals and directors introduce some of their staff members. So just going to have you stand and wave, and then the principals will read, and the directors will read a quick little bio on each of our new members. Not everyone came, but I'm just pleased to see some of the people who did come tonight. I think it's important for the school committee to get to meet a lot of our new staff, but also for new staff, especially those who are new to education, to understand that what this body is and the work that we do. So we'll spend about 10-15 minutes doing that, and we will start our evening off with Dr. Merrick. If you could just come right up and...
Surprise.
You had a 1 in 6 chance of going first.
Well, I am honored and privileged to introduce to you this evening my 2 new coordinators that I am working with. The first coordinator is Liz Lavery. Yay, Liz. And Liz comes to us with 21 years of experience as an administrator, specifically as a director of student services. She most recently came to us from Freetown Lakeville Regional School District. I never get that right, I apologize. But she has also worked for other both urban and suburban school districts, including the Boston Public Schools, where she was their staff attorney on staff. So I am thrilled that she will be serving us in grades 6 through post-grad in special education. Our second coordinator is Suzanne Shaw, Dr. Suzanne Shaw, and she joins me with a plethora of experience as well. Dr. Shaw has served in a variety of capacities, two of which she has worked for two different State Department of Education as an educational specialist, which is a person who goes out and reviews districts for compliance with special education laws or civil rights and ELL. And she has also been a special education director, and most recently she's been a team chair for several local districts. So I'm just so thrilled and honored that these two women are working with me, and it's going very well so far, and we're thrilled to be here. And Suzanne is serving students pre-K to grades 5. And also joining me is Kathy Messier. She is my new occupational therapist. And for those of you who don't know what an OT does, it is a person who serves our students essentially from the waist up, so any of their fine motor development. And Kathy comes to us most recently from the Holyoke Public Schools, but she's also served in EI and several other smaller school districts as well. So I'm thrilled, I'm honored, and it's been amazing working with these three women so far. Thank you.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Next, we'll have Courtney.
Yes, I have Tracy Breach. Yep, hello. Right in the back there. Tracy joined us in June as my new assistant to the business manager, accounts payable concentration. So we're very glad to have her. It was kind of rough last year with transition and all that, so we're looking forward to moving forward. And Tracy has 2 years of coursework at Johnson Wales in paralegal and business administration. And her prior work experience has been office manager, tax and bookkeeping assistant for a tax and bookkeeping company, paralegal for a law office, and she's also has experience working as an administrative assistant, receptionist, administrative medical secretary, and other similar positions for various firms. So we're very happy to have Tracy working with us, and we're moving along in the process because she came at the end of June, right before our year end. So, so we got through the year end, as we'll hear about later on, and moving forward with this school year, so.
Great. Welcome, Tracy.
Welcome.
Tracy.
Next, we have Tara Bennett coming up.
Good evening, everyone. Great to be here. And hello to the Douglas community. So we have 2 new staff members here at the high school with a couple more coming. So looking forward to filling those positions. They're just not here quite yet. But I'd like to start with Angela Woodford. And so Angela is actually a product of Douglas High School. She is our English teacher. Started off here as a paraprofessional, went into a long-term sub position last year, and has now moved into the English department. She is a third generation educator, which she is incredibly proud about, and really shared some really nice memories and some experiences during her interview. And she's very excited to give back to the community, as she says, that raised her, teaching with those who inspired her to become a teacher. And I will also share that she loves her cats. And so we get a lot of cat stories, but we're really excited to have Angela on board with us in the English department. Also in the English department, but was unable to attend today, is our long-term sub, Carrie Wall. So Carrie is actually a community member. She graduated from Rhode Island College with a BA in English and Secondary Education. And in addition to her passion for teaching, she was also a national, world, and Olympic figure skating coach, which is just pretty darn cool, if you ask me. Pretty darn cool. And she actually was a coach when the U.S. figure skating team won bronze when they were in Seoul, I believe, in Korea. So that's just, again, really cool. She is excited to be part of the Douglas School community and to share her expertise in English as well as her world experiences with her students. So again, we're really excited to have these two individuals join our English department. And again, we will be onboarding a paraprofessional on Friday as well as a Spanish teacher next week. So we're really excited to fill out those positions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara.
Welcome.
Mr. O'Brien.
Good evening. We have 5 new staff I'm going to introduce tonight, unfortunately due to illness, a medical appointment, and a 90-year-old birthday party. Not attended. But, new teacher Margaret Hack received a bachelor's degree from State University of New York with a major in English literature. In 2019, she received her Master's of Education from Boston University with a focus in English language art. Margaret has 7 years of experience teaching and has taught a full inclusion, general education, and special education. She holds dual certificates in teaching ELA and special education for middle school grades. Another special education teacher, Mary Seagrave. Mary's in her first year as a teacher in Douglas after holding several long-term substitute teaching positions. She co-teaches math and English and is a liaison for grade 8 students. When not teaching, she enjoys spending time with her family, her pets, and is obsessed with crocheting blankets and loves to sing along to musical soundtracks. We have a long-term substitute in art, Sandra Barrett. It's wonderful to get a long-term substitute who's fully certified in art, so that was a great find. Jamie Russo is a longtime elementary school ABA and joins us as a 7th grade inclusion teacher. And Jasmine Nunez comes to us from Boston Public Schools. She's absolutely in love with Douglas students, and she is an ABA in our Flex program. So welcome all of them aboard.
Thank you. Mr. DeFonso.
Hi everyone, good evening. So we have 5 new staff members. I want to start with 2 that are present here. So Megan Daniels. Megan is currently working as a one-to-one student-specific aide, paraprofessional 2nd grade. She earned her AD from Mass Bay with a focus on early ed and liberal arts. Her experience has been as an ABA while also working with children with various behavioral and issues and learning disabilities. And she is currently in pursuit of her bachelor's degree in education from Bay Path and will graduate in March. So congratulations and welcome, Ms. Daniels. We have also here with us is Ashley Wallen. Ashley's going to stand up and wave. So Ashley is currently our school adjustment counselor, and she has previously worked with DCF. She's a graduate of Towson University and the University of Maryland. Spent time working in the city of Baltimore for their special education department. She got married last year, moved from Baltimore to Massachusetts. She was born and raised in Baltimore. She unfortunately is a Ravens fan, but we will not hold that against her. She's going to the game Sunday, so I hope it does not go well. Welcome, Ms. Wallen. We have Allie Muller. She's not with us, but she is a new 3rd grade classroom teacher. She was a graduate of Adelphi University in New York, has her master's in childhood ed and advanced certification in special ed, and she played college softball for 4 years and currently coaches travel softball. We have Sophie Freeman, who is joining us as a special education teacher. She'll be in grade 5. And Natalia Hoshin, who has been a substitute for a few years at DES, has a student there as well. She is joining us as a paraprofessional. So we're very fortunate to have everybody, so thank you very much.
Social.
So my staff was not able to make it tonight, but I have a new kindergarten teacher, Robin Wood, and Robin is not new to Douglas. She was an ABA at the elementary school, she was an inclusion para at the primary school, and then she did 1 year at a private school teaching preschool. We have Terry Huchitara with 14 letters in her name, so we call her Mrs. H. She is our special education teacher. She has a bachelor's from Worcester State and a master's from American International College, and she has held several long-term substitute positions in area schools. We have a paraprofessional, Diana Grande. She's placed in a kindergarten class. She's been volunteering in a preschool for a couple of years. She is the mom of 4 Douglas children, so she has her hands full. Julia Scarziotti, she is a paraprofessional in kindergarten. She has a bachelor's from Southern New Hampshire University, so we welcome Julia. Catherine Curran Soto is a paraprofessional also in kindergarten. She has 20 years' experience in the field of ABA and behavior management. And lastly, we have Abigail White, who is our remediation paraprofessional. She has a Bachelor of Arts from Salem State University. So they're all fabulous and love having them.
Welcome, everybody.
And that is it, I believe, for our new staff. As entertaining as I'm sure the next hour will be, I would strongly encourage you, and feel free to go home and do whatever it is you need to do to get ready for tomorrow. But thank you for coming out and joining us tonight.
Thank you, everyone, for being here.
And feel free to watch on YouTube on the ride home.
Well,
Don't watch on the ride.
not really.
I'll drive it. Once you get home. Once you get home.
DVR it. Don't miss it.
Thank you, everyone. Next part of my report is to have our principals and Dr. Merritt come up and present their goals for the 22-23 school year. We haven't done this in the past, but we spent a lot of work this year talking about data, looking at goals, and looking at how we can make sure we have measurable outcomes for our students. So we're better at the end of the year than we are at the beginning of the year. When you listen to some of the goals, you're going to see a lot of data. You're going to hear about a lot of data. You're going to hear about a lot of measurements that we're using, a lot of reference points. You're going to listen to some of the goals, and they're ambitious, some of them. And the bar has been set high. But in talking to some of the principals, Mrs. Socha and I had a conversation today. She said, I'd rather aim high and miss it by a little bit than aim low and just make it. So, yeah, some of them are ambitious, and, we know that we may not hit all of them, but I'd rather aim high and strive for that. You go back to that movie, Stand and Deliver, by Jaime Escalante, the calculus professor out in California, and he said, students will rise to the level of their expectations. So if you set that bar high, we will get there. So we'll start with Dr. Merrick and her goals today, and then we'll call each of the principals up. And at the end, feel free as a committee to ask any questions you might have.
Prepared for you more of an action plan than a goals statement, if you will. It serves me better, and I think my staff better, when I actually lay out for them some of our targets, where we'd like to be, what our action steps are, and kind of where we're going. And so I use those as my targets and as my goals through practice, if you will. So our first area of focus is going to be on multisensory reading for students with dyslexia and other language-based reading disabilities. And to get us going with that, we're starting off with a small cohort of individuals who will be going through a true Orton-Gillingham certification process. They actually will, in the end, receive ALTA certification, which is one of the highest levels of certification that you can receive in multisensory reading. And then subsequently be able to serve their students in either the special ed classroom or the general ed classroom in a more efficient, meaningful way. I went through this particular certification myself, and I can tell you that after you go through it, you will never view reading in the same way again. And you will be so thankful that you learned how to teach students how to read. So It's been well received. We had our online call yesterday afternoon for those that were interested, and it looks like we'll fill our cohort of 5 this year, which is really exciting news. So I'm excited to get started on that and then see where it goes from there.
Dr. Merrick, are there teachers from each building that are within that cohort, or do you have like pockets right now?
So I do. I have teachers from every building who have applied.
That's awesome.
Yes.
In layman's terms, can you explain what a multisensory approach to reading is?
Yeah. It's a systematic and diagnostic approach to teaching students how to read, specifically students with dyslexia or a language-based disability. So it's a little bit different than the science of reading because that's more the umbrella that all of reading falls under. And that's about the science of reading is more about the 5 pillars of reading, which is phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. This is much more narrow, much more focused, much more diagnostic in nature for our students who really struggle with learning how to read. But you can take this skill and apply it to any aspect of the reading pillars, if you will. So I'm excited for the interest, and we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Dr. Merrick, for this, because I know a lot of districts, they're trying to advocate for their districts to do stuff like this, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago, and now it spills over, right? The next area is behavior. This kind of jumped out at me when I came here, is that we seem to have students that are having some challenges behaviorally in both general education and special education. But this particular, what I'm referencing here, is applied behavioral analysis, which is essentially collecting data, looking at student data, analyzing it, and changing instruction to help students with their behavior in the classroom. And so we started right off the bat with our first 2 PD days, and we jumped right into some basic ABA principles, and we will be continuing that through October 7th on our PD day and into January as well. But what's really cool is we're taking that into a much deeper approach. So we've been working with the teachers who are in a sub-separate flex programs, and we're actually putting together data books and looking at student data and how we're going to track academic, social, emotional learning and behavior and what that's going to look like. And next week, we are also going to start to train the staff in the classroom in how to collect that data, look at it, analyze it in real life, real time. So it's coming along. It's going very well. It's been well received. Teachers have been enthusiastic to receive it thus far, so that's great. And then the last area, main goal area, at least in this part, is our SEL, which is the social emotional learning, which Dr. Vieira and our leadership team are working out a lot of the details related to that, but essentially it's everything. We want our students and our staff to be prepared to address the needs of students from everything from mindfulness all the way up to, heaven forbid, signs of suicide, right? And everything in between. And school anxiety, school phobia, anxiety in school, whatever the case may be, so that they're prepared to identify the markers of some of these students in the classroom. So we're in the initial stages of kind of planning that out, but these are some of the action steps that seem fortuitous for us moving forward. And I think from a special education lens, one of the biggest things that we're working on, if you go to the last page of my rollout, or I guess the middle, where it says operations and management, is just cleaning up some of our processes in special education world and making sure that we're doing things in not only a compliant manner, but also in a student-focused, student-centered manner as well. So we're really, Suzanne, myself, and Liz are really taking a look at our current practices, the programs we have in district, and really brainstorming about what that looks like for moving forward. And so that's that operational piece there, which is also, as you can kind of see, a work in progress. Okay. underneath that part, as well as also that multi-tiered system of support, which you can see is a little bit sparse in my report there, just because we're working at that, on that at the leadership level as well. But we do have our school psychologists are chairing our SST meetings, and so I'm working with them to kind of beef up our processes, specifically around student data and student analyzing that data so that we can best meet the needs of our students in the general ed classroom. So that's kind of a work in progress. And then, of course, I leave the best part to the end, which is families and community engagement, which is all the fun stuff, right? So we're looking at unified sports and how we'll bring unified sports here for kids with and without disabilities. And I just learned actually that unified sports includes kids without disabilities, which I really wasn't that aware of, to be honest. And so I'm really excited for that undertaking. We did send out a memo to parents the other night, just seeing if you'd like to partake in some of that process. And I know that one of our neighboring districts has reached out to us to see if we would like to partner with them. So I'm very excited about where that might go and what that might look like. Also going to look further into our, we call it our Tigers
United.
Our Best Buddies program here in the district, and get that up and running again. And of course, we'll be talking about Special Olympics as well. All right? Any questions for me?
Dr. Merrick, just because not everybody has your plan, I just think it's important that your social emotional goal, it's to all students, regardless of, you're looking at how you're going to support all students, whether they have disability or not. So the things that you're doing aren't just for your students, or aren't just for students with special education there.
Absolutely. Mindfulness is a very powerful tool for all students, especially. Yeah. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sosha.
All right, so as Dr. Barry said, we are going for the gold on our student learning goal here, and we're going to shoot for 100% of all of our students to be at or above grade level on the STAR Early Literacy Benchmark Assessment by the end of the year. So I'm going to be their biggest cheerleader and support the staff as much as I can with that goal. We're going to be looking at, of course, beginning, middle, and end of the year data. Teachers are keeping track per student. They're going to create their own folders for each student. They're going to keep what they're calling running records of other things that they're assessing in the classroom, not just the STAR. So it could be letter names and sounds. It could be fluency. It could be sight words that they will keep track of. We started in first grade last year doing what they're calling curriculum-based measures, the CBMs, and you can administer those. There's a 1-minute quick hit on a real specific skill. So if we're looking at a gap, we can do a strategy, try an intervention, give them that CBM. Did it work or didn't it work? And then go back to the drawing board or move on. Kindergarten, this will be new. We had not tried this at all last year in kindergarten. So it is an aggressive goal. I think the staff's a little nervous about it, but like I said, what's the worst that could happen here? That is the ultimate goal, is to have everybody reading on grade level. So that's why that one is there. My professional practice is to support and provide professional development on the MTSS, and we're focusing at the primary on Tier 1, specifically differentiation and small group instruction. We're continuing to work with Claire Landrigan, a reading consultant, who's given us some strategies for that small group, especially in literacy, giving kids choices instead of reading the same book for 5 days in a row, where they can read at their level, above their level, whatever fits there. And so we're using the same data points that we would for the student goal. And then my school improvement goal is one that probably pre-COVID was the last time that we have actually looked at the curriculum and the mapping that we had done, making sure what we're teaching aligns to the state standards, making sure that there isn't a gap somewhere, that we miss something, because it happens. just because you're using a certain program doesn't mean that that program is totally 100% aligned. So we want to make sure about that. We want to make sure, too, that what we're assessing is what we're teaching. So that's a huge, I think, task for us to do that. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of, digging in to make sure that we're doing it right. So we have current maps, so what we'll have to do is provide professional development and get some substitutes, free up some of the teachers, and work in teams on those to really make sure they're aligned. Any questions?
How are the teachers feeling about STAR at this point? Are they pretty, ready to run with it?
They're feeling
find reports
much
that they
more
want?
confident as far as administering the assessment itself. Compared to what we had in the past, they are enjoying the feedback on it. We're still trying to dig deep into it, so one of their tasks this week before we have common planning is for them, now that we've given the beginning of the year, we know who's yellow and who's red and who's green. Now, let's dig in and find out, are there 5 kids that were red that have a specific skill that, we can start addressing. And it doesn't mean that they're all red even. It could be somebody in the green that has a deficiency in a certain area, but they still scored above or on grade level. So yes, they're feeling much better. We continue to have professional development on STAR, though. And they're going to like the CBMs, too. Thank you. Any other questions?
Are you doing small groups in preschool as well? As K in first grade? I know it kind of, I know a small group in preschool and a small group in first grade don't look
Right.
the same, but
Right.
are they getting the exposure to that?
Absolutely. Every preschool class has one other person, an ABA, in the classroom, so when it's feasible, yes. And they're following pretty much, a curriculum, and they're following the guidelines, the state standards in preschool.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sosha. Mr. DeFonso?
I have it on my phone, so I'm not playing the game.
Yeah, I don't think that was supposed to be in there.
All right, so coming into this role, one of the earlier meetings Dr. Vieira and I had was for me to obviously familiarize myself with historical data with how our staff is doing, how our students are doing, and my goals to align with his goals district-wide was to initially, a professional practice was to identify at least 2 areas where I have seen through data where we're struggling. So before I even started, I looked at some MCAS data, and now that I have access to STAR, it was pretty clear that we were struggling in math pretty mightily. Almost double digits, probably worse in each of the grades for MCAS than our ELA scores. So that was alarming. So my professional practice goal was to identify at least 2 areas across grade levels in math to specifically address. So how I'll be doing that is through our STAR testing, which I can break down on the site to standards by classroom. So then I'll be able to identify specifically to dive down deeply to see exactly where we're missing the mark and kind of correlate that with MCAS data, which I'm able to pull and disaggregate by standard as well. And so that's the areas of my professional practice goal. And my goal is to do that with each grade, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Obviously, grade 2 won't have MCAS, but they'll have STAR data. So I've used STAR in the past, and I find it a very useful source, and they do sell themselves as predictors of MCAS success, and I do believe it correlates pretty well historically that when I've looked at it. So I do like this site. And then for my student learning goal, it's kind of professional practice goal kind of drives the student learning goal. So for student learning goal, I have one for each grade. So for example, for 3rd grade, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, 60% of grade 3 students will achieve a growth percentage of at least 50% on their STAR assessment. So you get a score on STAR. let's call it 600. That might not come across as meeting the benchmark. It doesn't tell the story, because if you started at 450, but you got to 600 by the end of the year, that doesn't tell the story. That growth is what tells the story. So yes, that student might not be at benchmark, but they made 150 points in growth. So that's why I based my goals on growth, because I really think that's the truer measure of how a student progresses. I'm sorry, this died out. So I have a goal, like I just read, which you have in front of you. I have one of those for each grade level. And you'll see there's a progression of increased percentage expectation. So fifth grade ends up being at 80%, because at that point they've had more exposure, they've had more content, so I expect more out of them, right? So that's a student learning goal, and how we're going to kind of attack that is, my intent is to meet each month with grade levels to see how their students are doing and how our progress monitoring is going, because we give STAR 3 times a year, but in between that, it's incumbent upon teachers to progress monitor their students, especially ones who are not at or at benchmark. So I don't want to wait 3 months to find out that Johnny's still below benchmark. We need to know what's happening at the time, because in real time, we can make adjustments, we can reteach something, we can pull small groups. So I think that's essential. So that's my goal, and my job is to coordinate that and facilitate that process as we go throughout the year.
How often do you plan to coordinate that with them? Like,
My hope is to meet once a month with each grade level.
okay.
That's my goal, which I think is doable. And I'm in the process of disaggregating STAR data, ST Math data, and MCAS data to kind of compare it side by side to see where our gaps are, what's making the most impact per grade level. And you can even drill it down to teachers too, so it's really good information. So for my school improvement goal is to continue our professional development with MTSS, which is really MTSS, one of the aspects of it that I really appreciate is they drive home how important common formative assessments are in progress monitoring students. And that goes right along with my other goals. It's really an essential piece I'm trying to drill home with teachers that we need to continuously do. Because if you're not doing that, you need to know where your students are at all times. So if you're waiting months in between to the middle of the year test, you're missing 3 months of data that you could get on a student. So that's one of the big pieces of MTSS that we're working on, and we've already started that PD in our staff meetings and our district days. So we're doing everything from, we still have ST Math PD throughout the year. We have Ms. Landrigan as well for reading, and along with Dr. Vieira's help, we're looking on getting math professional development so we can specifically address areas that we identify as weakness, so, and build upon that, so. And I think that's about it. Any questions?
Are we going to have MCAS reported to us at some point?
So the principals have
I
done a
wonder
lot.
if I should hold that
The
question that I
MCAS and the
have.
status, so at our first meeting in October, principals are presenting their school improvement plans.
Okay.
To you and doing that. And then they've already started looking at MCAS data. We met last week, we met again today on it, and they're also going to be presenting STAR data. That's probably going to come the end of October, beginning of November, to give them time to be able to get the school improvement plans up and running. I needed to have them have their goals up and running. So the end of October, beginning of November, they'll present that STARS piece about what they learned last year and how they're using that information to drive instruction this year, and also the MCAS. The accountability data was just released, was it yesterday? It was Friday of last week.
Okay. Do we know if we're in a better place than we were last October in terms of MCAS? Is that known yet?
It's tough to say because the MCAS data that we had last year was coming off of the COVID year. So we've just started doing that analysis.
Okay. All right.
I'll be able to, when I'm done, we'll be able to tell you at each grade level how they fared versus last year. And on Edwin, there's a data report that you can look at 3 years at a time.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to look at the 3-year progression for each grade level in each subject.
Okay.
And it's tough looking at that 3-year progression because of
COVID.
Because of COVID. Last year, we were back full-time. The year before that, we were in that hybrid model for the first half of the year. And the year before that was was the year we went out, so. And then the year before that, we were here full-time. So
Well, I
it's
was
really
thinking-
tricky to,
Pre- and post-COVID numbers, though, that were reported to us this time last year, I mean, I don't think that either of them were where we would want them to be.
No, they're
so,
not.
I'm
I think Mr.
eagerly awaiting more.
I think Mr. DeFonso alluded to it. Our math numbers at the elementary school are all significantly different than our ELA numbers, and they're not where we want to be, which is why a lot of the information, a lot of the goals are data-driven to get kids to be at benchmark and to be at grade level, because we do need to see that growth.
Is that just a district thing that the math is down? Or is that a state thing? Like, is that,
In
do
looking
we
at-
know?
In looking at different pockets of the school, one of the reports we looked at is where we compare to the state.
Yep.
And we're, in a lot of areas, below state average. And we're better than that.
Yeah, contrast to the ELA, we're right there, if not better, but math, for whatever reason, low.
Should we maybe look at a curriculum review of some of our math stuff to see, maybe it's just not working for our kids anymore? Maybe we need to do something different with it?
And we've started looking at that. One of the things we're looking at the primary and at the elementary school is the correlation between ST math and scores. So we have a list of ST math and the number of average minutes per week that are spent on ST math, and we're doing an analysis to look at how that correlates with students who meet or exceed standards on the MCAS growth scores. We're using the end-of-the-year assessment for STARS for meeting and exceeding expectations, and we're using STARS data for the growth scores. So Cindy and Anthony are finishing up that this week by Friday, and then next week, we're going to look at it to see what the correlation is. We've done some preliminary numbers, and interestingly enough, there is a correlation between the number of minutes done on ST math and growth scores on the MCAS exam.
Thank you very much.
Mr. O'Brien?
Mr. O'Brien, short.
As Mrs. Socher and Dr. Vieira stated earlier, that we have to set our goals high. And I just want to share a quick quote from Michelangelo, who says, "The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it." So it's going to be a recurring motif at the middle school throughout this school year. Mr. DeFonso said about the Edwin data. The Edwin data is the MCAS computer system that spits out all the data, and we could spend how many hundreds of hours drilling down that data and looking at it. But looking at that data, I noticed that about 13% of the middle school students are at high risk for what the state says, Department of Education says is high risk. That's the highest, about 13%. My goal is to make sure that 80% of those students, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, show growth of 90% or more on the NWEA end-of-year assessment. Now, NWEA, some also call it MAP testing, that correlates with MCAS, so their scores we can see on the MCAS scores. But in my office, I have those 13% of the students hidden behind a little piece of paper, their names and what they need, where they are at right now, why they are at high risk. The good news is that gets smaller and smaller the longer they've been in middle school, those students. I looked at one of our 6th grade math teacher's score, and she had in one class 90% growth, which is just incredible. Jess Finley, I'll throw it out there, she's just phenomenal. So looking at that and seeing, okay, if this teacher's getting 90% growth, what can other teachers learn from her? And making sure that, as JFK said, rising tide lifts all boat. If we focus on the high at-risk students, good teaching practices, good school practices will lift everybody up to that. So we already started moving some schedules around, adding to students executive functioning class. That has been through both 6th, 7th, 8th grade teachers. Students are really struggling with executive functioning, the organizational skills. Partly of that is just the age, the adolescent, the brain development. But that's real important, and they see a lack in that. I did read an article that said the biggest damage that COVID did to students were students that were 9 years old during COVID, which is right now, they're in middle school. So that 9-year-old mark nationwide, and they use that NEAP, the Nation's Report Card is what they call it, those scores, and they broke it down. So the biggest, they lost probably 20 years of growth just during COVID, those 9-year-olds. So yeah, those are middle school students right now, so we expect to see that. But we also have fantastic teachers that can raise that score. So really taking it as a challenging undertaking and making it fun to show the students, as Tia said during her speech, look back at that and show them how much they learn. And it's real important that the students get that data so they can see where are my weaknesses, where are my strengths, develop that growth mindset. This is how we get better.
Mr. O'Brien, you said you were doing executive function. Are you doing that, like, is that a specific time of every class? Is that?
Executive functioning is our focus this year in SEL, our SEL block. But we also have a Tier 2 intervention that was paid for through the ESSER grant. And we do have that Tier 2 for regular education and special education students that need that time to get organized. The binder control, making sure everything's there, helping them with those skills, and working with our school psychologists and our school adjustment counselor. What can we teach the teachers to improve the students' executive functioning skills?
So it's not necessarily like a separate part of class, but just a focus
I
of
think-
class, kind of, yeah.
I think every teacher does some of it, but
Yep.
they give certain students that need that extra support, that specific time is very important. And then during our SEL, in the past, we focus on different segments of the SEL. But this year, speaking to the teachers, that executive functioning piece is just very, very important. Also looking at that data, that there's a direct correlation between attendance and student success. And it's tough to knock the students and parents for attendance when they were told to isolate or quarantine for 10 days. And that almost automatically puts them into the chronic absenteeism. So working with our student support team and part of the MTSS process to make sure if there's a student that's missing time, we catch it early enough, provide interventions to make sure they're coming to school. Because I don't want that mindset of, I'm not, I'm tired, I don't have to go to school. And during COVID, we kind of, all right, we want to make sure you're healthy and sick, but now it's time to really figure out what's the reasons behind those absences, make sure they're coming out. And with the SST team, we can look to see if there's a specific issue. Is there something going on in school? Is there some peer problems? Is some mental health issues? What can we use to get you into school? So again, we want to decrease that chronic absenteeism by 50%. Which again, it's tough with having a quarantine for 5 days now, but I think that's a lofty goal and we can achieve it.
Do you have any thoughts about how you might approach that? Is that going to be like increased connection, increased calls home, or building the family?
Calls home, letters to the student, a little postcard, we miss you when you're out, those types of things, and just making sure that if there's an underlying reason why they're out of school, are we aware of that? Reaching out to the family, we noticed they missed 3 days of school last week, is everything okay? That type of thing.
Who's doing it? Is that you? Is it Kayla? Or does it kind of depend on the situation and the student?
Student
and who
support team as a whole, so be myself, the dean of students, school psychologist, and the school adjustment counselor. And sometimes that even means driving to the house and knocking on the door and saying, we miss you. We want you to come back, and Officer Falone is great about helping us out with that. And really just making the kids feel so welcomed and embraced and supported at the school, especially during the middle school years.
Is there any way, has there been any thought about, like, getting some, I know you said there's organizational stuff that is, kids are struggling with in the middle school. Like, is there anything earlier on that can be done with the students to kind of get them used to keeping everything together, like multiple folders for everything, or?
I think every person has a different way of staying organized. Some people it's color-coded, some people, I hate filing. I have my little piles around my desk. I know where everything is. Please don't touch my piles. So what works for that student? That's in finding out what works for that student. Sometimes it's just a checklist. Do you have everything before you go home? Sometimes it's making sure they have an extra 10 minutes at the end of the day to make sure it's all squared away with before they go home. And then teaching them those skills in the SEL classes, and then some of those supportive places like Academic Development Center, really stressing that fact.
Yeah, I know that, like, the elementary school had a strong connection with primary last year, and I've always kind of hoped that we could build on that connection between elementary and middle school, and I think that's a really big culture shock for a lot of these kids.
Yeah,
And that would just help.
Just that, the rotating between classes, 4 classes, that's a big step. But when you see the school improvement plans, Ms. Bennett and myself are working on that middle school to high school piece already, so that say if you're in 6th grade right now, you'll be paired up with maybe a 9th grade pair, so when you come up to the high school, you have a senior who's keeping their eye out for you. Looking at how many different ways we can incorporate that between the school day. It's nice with the elementary school, they're right across the road from us. We did a lot of things last year where they'd come to the school, we invite them over. It's a little tough to have a 12-year-old be a peer mentor to an 8, but what we can do to build that and have those kids feel part of the school ahead of time is important, I agree.
Do you think
It is a big change from 5th to 6th. It's probably the most challenging throughout a child's career.
I was just going to say, I don't know that it's necessarily the school committee's job to know how you're going to do things. Our job is more to encourage goal setting, if I'm correct. That's what I feel like, right? So I appreciate that you're further elaborating on all that stuff. But you made a point that I really wanted to just take home with you, which was that there's a teacher here that does a phenomenal job. And I know a lot of teachers do, but there's something special about obviously what she's doing. And I remember a teacher a long time ago in 2nd grade, she's no longer with the district, she said something, which was, I want to get all the kids in the classroom to their full potential. That is my goal of the classroom. And I love that she said that, because that was awesome. And yes, Jess Finley, there's something unique about how she does things. And I just think that was great that you honed in on that, and how you figure out how to find out how she can do it is, I hope that you do.
Yes,
I think that would
and I
be
think it's
great.
important to give teachers that time to observe other teachers. I know from
Extremely.
the thousands of observations I've done, if I went back to the classroom, I've had so many more tools in the toolbox. The teachers do the hard work. They're in the classroom day in and day out. My job is to take away any distractions they have and make them shine and support them however I can. I consider myself like a golf caddy. They're the pro. I just try to give them the right club and keep the fans away, type of thing. But we have a fantastic staff. Best staff I worked with in my entire career.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bennett.
Hello again. So you'll hear some similar themes from me that you've heard from my colleagues here. I want to start with the student learning goal. It's going to focus on data, and what we're looking to do here at the high school is to bring in a more consistent process of analyzing data. So we'll be educating and answering questions and reviewing a data action model. It's actually already started. It's one of the things we did in our opening PD days, as it indicates here, just to help identify interventions and adjustments to practice. And the different data points will vary, depending on the subjects. Obviously, we can use MCAS for math and English, but we can also use some of those English scores to help our history, right, in our humanities, and we can use our math to help with our science. And then you can also certainly use English across the board, just in terms of writing and literacy and understanding for all of our relative arts and our other subjects. So, there's a lot of data points there, but then we also have advanced placement scores that can be used and are a little bit more course-specific for our staff. So we will be using a notice and wonder protocol, because one of the things, just in some previous experiences that I've had, is people just instantly looking up and they instantly make a judgment. They instantly go to the end result, whereas instead of maybe just looking and just what is it that I notice about this, especially if it's an individual based in a whole group. So we're going to look work a lot with notice and wonder, and try to be a little bit more specific with our wonder statements, and not jumping to judgments and not jumping to perceptions, and just really trying to hone in on what they see and what they notice before making, like I said, assumptions. So that is a strategy and something that we will continue to use through our PD days, our common planning time, individual meetings as well as our faculty, our staff time. And I know that process is also very much tied into what will be used with our SST, student support team. So as referrals come forward, we're going to want, well, what's the data? So again, that's just another avenue to really utilize and incorporate and understand data analysis, and that can be scary for people. I mean, when you look at that, how do you do that? But again, if you go through a process, it's a little bit more believable and a little bit more digestible too for the staff. So we will continue to work that, and this is something that Mr. Vega and I are working and teaming up together and really trying to hone in on, and we will bring in our department leaders as well. And certainly we'll use Dr. Merrick and school psychologists, all the individuals in other areas that need data as well for their process.
What's your staff's comfort level with looking at some of the data?
They're loving it. They're loving it right now. Our first opening, it was actually a little bit, it was eye-opening, even to the point of that I had a staff member after our opening day just literally put the head down and went, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I did a notice and wonder, and it just warmed my heart. And I went, okay. I said, all right, that's a start. It's breaking the ice. We have people who love to manipulate, and then we have others where it's just, nope, thank you. Just give me what you need. And so we'll find that balance. And it's more than a year process, for sure. It's absolutely more than a year process. But if we can work through and get that notice and wonder and really try to have the dialogues and the conversations, that's a win, certainly when it's coming into these pieces. And it's, again, it's not just our macro data points, it's going to be some of the micro, which could be your common assessments, and even your unit assessments and things along that line. And especially if you have two sections, even though understanding that individuals are different in there, you can still do analysis between assessments in the different sections too. So that's a process that we will, and we have started to implement. Professional practice goal, again, very similar to my colleagues here, is the focus with the MTSS. Here at the high school, we will be focusing on strengthening the implementation of Tier 1 instruction as well as Tier 2 interventions. So the Tier 1 focusing basically on your good teaching. And to some degree, it's just a reminder of here are just some good teaching skills that are already happening. But what's new? How can we maybe learn from a colleague, or maybe learn from somewhere off in the universe there, the Google universe or the Twitterverse, as I like to say, and just bring in different examples of what could happen. And then with our Tier 2 interventions, really focusing with the student supports, and that's, coming in with our SST, and so working a lot with Dr. Merrick and her team to, hone in and just, again, recognize that we need that information. Everyone's Tier 1, all means all, so everyone gets all of this. And then, sure, if that's not working in different manners, then maybe we are stepping it up to a Tier 2 concept. So those would be the two areas in particular with MTSS that we'll be focusing on. Again, the three area points of being the behavioral, the SEL, and the academics. And they kind of all intertwine in that manner. So this will be done, again, we've started this in opening days. We'll be doing a little bit more during our staff meeting in October, our PD day, and this will be something that will be ongoing, certainly throughout the year. And then the third written goal is a school improvement goal, which is focusing on family and community engagement. Mr. O'Brien alluded to the fact that we are working hard to make stronger connections between the middle school and the high school, and that's not necessarily identified here, because we really just made some final points, before this document was submitted. And so we're excited to have some of the ideas that we've talked about, and, those will focus on our co-curriculars, but also really trying to see how can we get academic connections as well, and, theatrical connections in that area. So it's, lots of different, it's students coming up here, but our students going down there as well, and just really trying to increase the visibility of students and staff at the middle school level in different formats. So that's something that we are working on and developing. And we're also focusing a lot with some of our community partners, Blackstone Valley Ed Foundation, which is a very strong foundation within the Valley, and they are here to support the schools. So we have a lot of conversations that are happening there, plus they provide PD for our counselors actually just went to a PD session through them, but they also support teachers and, again, students at both the middle school and the high school, and they're looking to expand even further down to the elementary schools for different, again, workshops and professional learning opportunities. And trying to make those connections with higher ed, as well as, how can we expose our students to what potentially are next steps for some of them, if not all of them, in terms of learning and college options. We do have our college and career fair that's happening this Friday, so all students get exposed to that opportunity to go visit and see what's down there. So I'm excited I've been to many of them, but I always enjoy walking around and seeing those options and getting the kids involved in that manner. And I'll be honest, there's a lot more with that than what's written down here, but right now it's just, I'm still in that gathering information stage and really trying to see, okay, what is it that we have and what can we truly bite off this year in many different areas to help strengthen our program of studies and our curriculum offerings for our students, as we're already talking about next year, and developing programs and pathways. So again, and then the final piece of that is just really making stronger connections with our local businesses. And that's to help enhance our student recognition, our staff recognition. We've had businesses that have provided gift certificates for students. Douglas House of Pizza, was great with that. We had Premier Real Estate help us with a luncheon as well. We have another business coming in October to help us with a luncheon. So just small things like that. But those small things can go a long way. Mm-hmm. And, part of that is very much for the morale and the culture as well, which here in the building is something that's being new, I'm just really trying to get a feel for and trying to work with. And again, working with the students as well to see how we can help them and make their experiences excellent here at Douglas High School, because that will only just trickle down. So those are our 3 written goals. I mean, I have a head full of unwritten goals, but we're, like I said, working with different pockets and a lot of great people. Even this afternoon, I went in with one thing, and I think we covered 5 different other areas, and I went, oh boy, I said, that was a great afternoon meeting, all that in a half hour. It was fabulous. So it's little pieces like that we will continue to work on here. And then I just know personally I'll be working with my colleagues just to really strengthen the unity that we have here as administrators, to support one another, and to really make sure that what we are delivering to Douglas is uniformed, appropriate in the areas and the levels, but certainly uniformed as well, so that our voice is strong and consistent. Any questions?
All right, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but one of the things that I did have on my list that I wanted to talk to you about, but I'll bring it up here. You touched on the communication piece, which I think is really good, because, as I expressed, sometimes you don't always get that communication with your kids in high school. So I'm glad that you're touching on that, because that is so critical, at least for me as a parent, because I have no idea, like this college fair. So I want to ask a question on this as far as goals go. This was my big thing with high school. So I have a child that goes to another school that's in high school, and then I have a child here, and I had a child previous to that. And the big struggle that I've always found here is career and college prep. Like, at the other school, there's actually a class that's dedicated to it every single, I don't know if it's week or day or whatever it may be. And I know it's a different kind of school, but I'm just wondering, like, is there any kind of, I know the guidance counselor helps out a little bit, but I feel like when these kids go to the college fair, are they going to have all their stuff ready to go? Like, are they going to know, like, what these colleges are looking for? Are they going to have the questions ready to go? It's so competitive, and I feel like I'm in September, and I feel like, oh my God, like, there's a deadline of October, and I'm not even there yet.
So our counselors have been working hard with our students in the advisory blocks that we've had. So we've had a handful of them at this point, because we've also had our intervention blocks. Like, we have our intervention block tomorrow, which is where students can go in and get the extra help from teachers, or teachers tap on the shoulders saying, no, you need to come in and finish that. But they have been working with the students in the different levels on different areas. Can I specifically say that, are they going to have questions ready for Friday? I'm not sure, just because I've not asked that specific question myself in that area. It's certainly something that I will look into tomorrow, point certainly taken in that. I do know that as the seniors specifically are walking around, the counselors will be in there. I know I will be in there as well to encourage those conversations and to encourage those questions in terms of, the students and what it is that they're looking for. The Naviance program that, as juniors, that they are exposed to, they do start to get some of that information. Mind you, that was probably more towards the end of last year, so how much of that carryover has been poked again, I'm not completely sure, but I know that students have been exposed to, like what you were just asking, in terms of what questions to ask. But certainly something that can easily be created, on an index card and provided to our students as they walk in on Friday to say, here are some suggested questions in terms of if the individuals from the colleges are not providing that information in terms of, this is where we're located, this is how big we are, this is, some of our services that we have, and things along that line. So truthfully, I think that's a pretty easy and simple, let's see what we can get done for Friday, if it has not already been done.
Yeah, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but kind of where I'm going with that is a few years ago, before Dr. Vieira, we had a superintendent here that was kind of looking at a lot of different pathways, and I know since that time, actually, no, it was as a principal, I think he did it. He was trying to come up with different pathways and stuff, because the common theme that I hear from kids as seniors is, I have no idea what I want to do. Now, some of us can say that even at the age of 45 and 50,
Right.
we really don't know what we want to do, and I just feel like there's so much pressure on kids right now that I just wish that there was more that we could do in our limited school to prepare kids, like, for.
So we do have pathways that do exist
Right,
and
some of
have
them,
been
yeah.
presented, in terms of at least for the course selection, if they're interested. Now, something along that line might even have to start in the 9th grade because of all the courses that are
Right.
being offered, so there is that. And Ms. Moeller, that is actually an area that I'm working on as well with our counselors, and we actually have a meeting next week to expand on that, that specific area with pathways. So I'm being vague on that, just because
okay.
we're still very much in the dialogue and the learning process with that, but it's certainly a vision to strengthen the pathways and the opportunities for, again, at least more exposure. Not that they necessarily know, because I'll be honest, again, my daughter just entered college, and if she stays with where she's at, not the school, but her major, it could be the school too, good for her. But I will share that one of her highlights, I saw her for 3 hours on Sunday. She said, Mom, I don't want to leave you, but I'm really excited to get back, because I'm finally really being able to make that connection with my classes to the global world. And she said, and this is coming from a different school, she said, that doesn't always happen in high school, because there are regiments, there are more curriculum and standards and frameworks that we're required to present. And so it was warming for me to see, but at the same point, it goes off as the high school principal going, okay, how how can I help those high school students have that light bulb go off a little bit sooner than 4 weeks into the freshman year, first year of college. But I was happy it went off for my daughter, in that manner. But then I have my son who, I'm not sure if he's going to continue to say, he's like, I'm not sure what I want to do. I like math and physics, but I don't know what I want to do with it. Go climb in Europe and go do the, whatever you need to do to figure it out, because that's where we're at. But certainly a conversation that is ongoing with our counselors to see how can we continue to support our students in this area.
Do we have a career day or anything where like community members come in and like,
I'm not sure if community members come in, but I know that we have over 50, 60 colleges that are coming in for Friday, but I'm not sure if it's specific. I've been to one where you've had community members come in.
Or like even just a separate, like a career day kind of thing.
Right.
I've seen it happen in some schools having
Yes.
career days, yeah.
I just think it would be cool. Like I know I'm very excited. My child's going to the BV Excel Intro to Health
Right.
career. She actually started, she's just finished right now.
Today on it.
But to me, that's great because she can go see all these different things, and I'm not paying for her to go to all these different possible careers that she might not be interested in.
I had one as an 8th grader, and I talk about it to this day, so.
I just think that would be really cool.
Certainly.
You got a lot on your plate, but
Thank you. We all do.
Thank you for your resume project too at the open house. That was really neat to watch.
Thank you.
To look
I think
at.
the staff really enjoyed doing that. So if you haven't seen the posters as you walk out the door, it really highlights the greatness of our staff here at the high school. So.
Thank you.
So just to bring some closure to this, we heard a lot about data, a lot about MCAS, but just also to point out, our kids are more than numbers. Our kids are more than just a moment in time in the MCAS. Our teachers do a wonderful job teaching the whole child, and that's not measured in the MCAS exam. It's not measured in the STARS assessment. Kids are more than just a number, and teachers are more than just what happens in that on 1 or 2 days. But Tara mentioned it. Looking at data gives us the opportunity to notice and wonder. It gives us the opportunity to ask the question, why? Why is a particular student not achieving success in an area? Why is a particular grade level struggling in a standard? And it gives us the opportunity to ask those questions. And the more we can talk about kids, the more we can talk about teaching and learning, the more reference points we get in, the stronger we are as a school district. So I know we talked a lot about MCAS, about STARS assessment, about gross scores, but I didn't want people to lose sight that this is about talking about kids. This is about making sure kids reach their full potential. And this is just one of the multiple data points that we can actually measure to look at. So I'm very proud of the work that the principals and the directors have done in putting their goals together. I start off by saying they're ambitious. We are aiming high, which is important for us to do because our kids deserve it. So thank you to everyone for your time and for doing that. So, and then finally, we're going to talk about enrollment and school choice. Real quickly, our enrollment numbers really haven't changed. We were at, at 1186 when I was here 2 weeks ago, and we're still at 1186. The last thing to talk about is school choice. We went up one student from where we were in 21, 22. We were at 124. We're at 125 now. We had a couple of kids that came on, but we also lost a couple of kids who decided not to do school choice. One of the things I'm going to ask for tonight is for us to close school choice for grades K through 12 as of Friday, September 30th. Usually we hold off on the high school a little bit longer, but in meeting with Mrs. Bennett and Mr. Vega, they think it's a wise choice for us to close school choice on September 30th. We've always closed K through 8 in September. As you can see, 6, 7, and 8 have been closed as our grades 3 and 4. So I think at this time, it would behoove us to close school choice, give it another week, but as of September 30th, 2022, we no longer be accepting any new school choice students to the district.
I'd be looking for a motion to post-school choice as of September 30th, 2022 for grades K through 12 in Douglas schools.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Julie, seconded by Teresa. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain?
Thank you. And that is all I have for tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And I will turn it over to Courtney for the school committee and subcommittee report. Accounts payable.
I don't think we have anything
Nothing?
this evening.
All right, good. Here we are with the consent agenda then. We have the September 7th, 2022 school committee meeting minutes. There was something on here where we were looking over the subcommittee minutes and,
Third
Okay,
page,
Teresa.
third item down.
thank you, the 7/23/2020 minutes. It has Ms. Salvis as making the motion and also seconding. And, Teresa, are you saying that you
I'm-
were seconding?
I think I probably would have seconded. I'm comfortable with that change.
I think that was the only one.
Yeah, we went through the rest.
So we'd be looking for a motion to approve the minutes with that change?
And which date was that again, please?
7/23/2020.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, I'll move to approve the school committee minutes of September, did you say September 7th?
September
Yeah, September
7th.
7th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made by Julie, seconded by Beth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstained?
So just bringing forth to the school committee a approval for recognition of a student organization, class of 2026, which is so exciting. This freshman year class, class of 2026, they need to establish a student activities account. The class has elected officers that just took place, including a treasurer, and our advisor, Ms. Novicki, has been appointed. So she will participate in the annual advisor training that will be upcoming, and is working with Ms. McDermott as well in the front office to get up to speed with all that needs to happen, though she is a pretty versed and oiled machine in terms of what needs to take place with student activities. So, so no financial impact to the district. And if the school committee is in agreement, I'm just asking for the following motion, which is to move to approve the creation of a student activity account for the class of 2026.
I move to approve the creation of a student activity account for the class of 2026.
Second.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by Julie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstained? Okay.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
So the next thing on the agenda is for the Building Facilities Construction Committee.
Certainly. So last week, I had a conversation with Ray Collins. Ray is obviously a community member. He has a child in the 7th grade. He works in the information technology field. In one of his careers, he actually has installed camera systems in schools. So he's familiar with projects, he's familiar with the municipal side, he's familiar with how building projects work from his professional career. Had about a 10-minute conversation with him, explained a little bit about what this entails, and he says, "Paul, sounds great, just let me know what the next steps are." So I said the next steps will be the school committee appointing him, and then from there, I'll have Heather reach out to Ray and to the town to let them know that he's been appointed with his contact information. So had a nice conversation with them, and said, be willing to help out, which is awesome.
So I know that, were you the one that sent out, like, what was necessary, like, what this job entails in terms of
I did, yes.
plans, reviews, and,
So what this job would entail is whenever there's a project in town, the town will put together a building committee, and one of the members, one of the representatives of the committee is a liaison from the school department on that committee. So it would be Ray as that individual. And as the project is going on, he would offer his insight, he would offer his expertise to whatever's needed for that project, but also serve as a liaison to come back to the school and say, hey, for instance, we're building a new public safety building, joint police, fire, and highway department. He'd be a part of the committee, but then be able to come back to the school committee and say, just want to let you know that we are breaking ground on this date. The site of the facility is going to be here. School committee's been invited for the groundbreaking ceremony. We're going to put it up for vote on this date. So act as a liaison between the municipal side and the project and the school committee.
Well, that's great that we have somebody that would volunteer for that, because
Correct.
it takes a lot to have a lot of that knowledge and to have time to do it.
Yeah. Having done a couple of school projects, it's a
It's a commitment.
It's a commitment. It's a commitment.
and he's fully aware.
He is.
Okay.
So I would just need a motion to appoint
What
him.
is,
What's his name
Ray
again?
what?
Ray Klontz.
Ray.
Clontz.
I make a motion to appoint Ray Klontz for our Building Facilities Construction Committee representative.
Motion made by Beth,
Second.
seconded by Teresa. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed or abstained? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And we're not doing the DMS-DHS foreign language trip, so we are going to move forward to school business and operations manager report.
Okay, so to start with this evening, I do have some transfers. Feeling, I know it's only a few of them, but we're all requested by the administrators, but unlike last year, it's like so good to feel like I'm getting back to normal. Keep up with things and so, but these were all requested by administrators, and so I'm bringing those to you, and I'm going to try to be on a regular roll with transfers and hopefully not too many reclasses. So I don't want it to be like last year, but.
I just had a question about how, because I can totally see the money flow here, but, so like when we're talking about principal office supplies, and is that like something like music supplies, something that typically comes out of that?
No, it's coming from the principal's office supplies, you mean the first one, and it's going into the music supplies.
That's what I mean.
So what that means is they needed a little bit more than what they had in that account for music supplies, so they're taking it from the principal's supplies.
$53 and change.
So they
Yeah.
needed like
Yeah.
physical music, or did they need like
Oh, it could be
Post-its or
anything, could be anything, it's just, I don't even need to know that, you know what I mean, I just, yeah. I have no idea, I have no idea, yeah.
No, so this is a.
Just music,
this is
music
approved
supplies,
by-
supplies for music.
So this is
Yeah.
something like the principal, like, signs off on? For use-
Sorry?
This is something the principal signs off on for the use
They're
of
the ones that request it.
Okay,
In other words, if they go in the red, they have to find the money if they move it from within their school.
okay.
Yeah.
That's
And you
my
know,
question,
and remember
because
when they're going.
Are they taking from money that
Yeah.
the principal normally spends for
Right.
whatever he or she needs?
I don't know, the principals are in charge of their budget, and they have to find, so, and a part of the problem is, too, is that you don't always know, like, a year and a half in advance, when we're preparing the budget, and things can change. So, and not only that, things are more expensive now. So that's probably more the problem this year, is that things are costing more money. So, yeah.
So where we see like DHS, that's all from the principal has already like approved all of this?
No, I just, at the beginning, these all come from them.
Okay.
All these requests came from them,
Okay,
to make sure their budget is not in the red.
okay.
Yep, yep. But I do a lot of these, too, throughout the whole entire district for things that I oversee, which is like probably 95% of
Yeah,
the budget.
I
But I
think
mean,
that's the
yeah.
part we don't know.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
know which ones are.
So I do all
like,
the-
behind the scenes.
Yeah, I do all the salary ones, and so principals, mostly their, it's their principal supplies, their PD that is in the principal's line, if you recall the budget. Just the instructional supplies, textbooks, although textbooks I often end up covering because unfortunately, we end up removing it from the budget, come down to the appropriation, and then we review everything after we close the books. In fact, we've just done that. We processed all of their purchase orders recently, and they all came out of school choice. Because I saw when we closed the books, and we want to get them ordered as soon as possible. Trying to think what other lines they do, because to be honest with you, I do most of it. That's basically it, yeah.
That was my only question.
Yeah.
Was, how is that made?
Yep. Yep. So that's why, yeah, actually it is, and the ones I just mentioned are all the ones that you see here. That's pretty much it, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so I move that we approve the fiscal year 2023 budgetary transfer request number 1.
Second.
Motion made by Julie, seconded by Teresa. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay.
And one other thing, too, I want to mention is sometimes it's as simple as, oh, boy. So when we budget for, say, textbooks, a lot of things are not tangible things anymore. There are things that licenses and subscriptions. So, and, per the town accountant, we need to put it in a different code. So we don't know what to budget in that. We don't know what form it's going to come in necessarily. So sometimes, like one of them here, we're just moving from, you'll see the textbook licenses and subscriptions? So, say they budget it where they would be a normal textbook, they don't necessarily know when we're doing the budget which way it's going to go. So sometimes it ends up all or some of it being partially in a form of a license and subscription, and some of it is a tangible textbook, but DESE or DOR are both required to be in different lines. So sometimes just cleaning things up for the accounting end too. Just the object code. And there's one of them here that's just the object code. The world is a little different than it used to be. Everything just used to be a thing. But some of it's up there. So, okay, thank you. Oh, we just have to remember too at the end, we'll just sign that too. So also this evening, I do have for you the FY 2022 reports that I present each year. So I have the school department funds report. And this is after every single account is, and fund is reconciled with the town accountant. So starting with the FY22 general fund, which the operating budget, it ends up coming down to 0, because the whole thing was reclassing to school choice. And there was a little bit left in the transportation, actually a bit left in the transportation account, and that just rolls out back to free cash on the town side, because that's a separately voted warrant article. Next down, we have the FY22 revolving funds.
So we give that money back to the town from the?
No, give it back. It is required by law to go back to,
Okay.
yeah. And so it ends up being actually all departments, if they have anything left or warrant. I mean, we are allowed to bring ours, down to 0. I mean, we have our appropriation that's voted by town meeting. But it eventually rolls out to free cash.
So it
becomes
wouldn't
part of
just
that whole
go to the
process.
next year for transportation for the next year, it has to go back to?
Yeah, there's a
free
whole
cash in
process
the
that's
town.
required,
Okay.
yeah.
Because you can't put that back into you can't use that for the operating budget.
I'm sorry?
You can't use that money in the operating budget.
No, that's a separate line. It's really a town account, so to speak. Yep, separately voted warrant article. In the next area is the FY22 revolving funds. So we have the beginning balance, receipts for the year, expenditures, and then the ending balance reconciled with the town accountant. The two that we generally look at is school choice and circuit breaker. So school choice, we're a little bit lower than the starting balance for the beginning of the year, but better, certainly better than, it was very hard for me to give any predictions. I know Paul wanted me to give predictions all the time, but, the COVID years, I don't know how to explain it. Everything was just all over the place. You just could not predict like past years. But I am happy to see the balance where it is. And we were able, I felt comfortable, I'll put that in quotes, only because of the way everything is going up and up and up everywhere. But, everybody got their textbooks. So we did have a lot of extra repairs, too, that had to be done over the summertime to our buildings. We try to get everything we can done that needs to get done, more than we anticipated. But again, you have the high school is over 16 years old, the primary school is very old, but knock on wood, just do it right here. That's the oldest school, and we do have the least problems with the buildings, but I didn't say that. And the other one that we look at is circuit breaker. And I do have another report that I provided to you as well, where I break out school choice and circuit breaker, so you can see the historical, and we'll go over that in a minute. So I'll just leave it at that. We can go over that in a minute. But, you know, all in all, the balances that I really look at as far as sustaining programs is school choice and circuit breaker, because we do use that substantially to offset our budget and expenditures. Also, though, for program budgets, it's school lunch and preschool. And school lunch is the best it's ever looking in, I think, since 1747. I know they didn't have school lunch back then when they incorporated the town, but since 1948. So, you know, and Raquel has made, and her staff has made wonderful improvements to the program, so that's fantastic. So I don't have to worry about having to fund any of it through the general fund in any way. And as you know, she also supported a lot of her equipment needs that have been there for years through grants that she obtained. And also, I was waiting to see how the year was going to close out, and I authorized her to do some more equipment purchases that we needed over the summertime, so it would be ready and in place by the time school started as well, because of the balance. So that worked out wonderful. The other one is preschool program. That's looking well, but that, you know, I really do have to keep an eye on that, because that can, you know, trend up and down. Sometimes just a change in staff, say, can go, you know, double-edged sword. Say you have a teacher at, you know, say 84,000, I'm just making up, no, you know, and they retire, you can bring somebody at 40, or you could have somebody at 40 and all, and they leave or change or go someplace else, and you're bringing somebody in at a higher amount. So, because we do try to, the more that preschool revolving fund can support the program, the less we have to reduce from our general fund budget for the rest of all our programs. It's a real balancing act, as you all well know. So everything's looking fairly well there with the revolving funds, athletics as well. Then again, not knowing, we didn't know about participation, we didn't know, you just didn't know during COVID. The next one down is the FY22 donations. You know, there's not really a lot there, and we have been trying to clean those up, not clean them up, but utilize the funds that we have had there for a few years, and everybody's doing a really good job at that. I know some of that miscellaneous is also, even though we have separate athletic donations, I believe there may be something still in there for athletics as well, and Mary is aware of that and is looking to expend that. Next page, we have the FY22 prior year grants. That means grants that we received, you know, in either 20 or 21. Because of COVID and just changes on the state level, they've allowed the grants to keep rolling over and rolling over more than they were in the past, so that's why you'll see that, but you will see the original year there. So you'll see in comments section, if you see a negative there, you usually see a fund, you know, funds that will be coming in that were downloaded, except the one there, that one there, miss a deadline, and then they cut you off. You can't even go in again to get any more funds until September comes, so. And then we have the FY22 current year grants from last year as well. The ESSER 3 grant, we did not expend much of that money at all. That was $406,843. This year, we are utilizing a lot of that funding for some Title I teacher, a little bit of an offset for Title I para, and all of our remediation paras too. And we have fully staffed our remediation paras for our buildings, which is fantastic. Yep, fantastic. So, and we will be meeting on Monday, Dr. Vieira, myself, and Mrs. Socha, to go over the balance that we haven't really figured out, to kind of look at information that we've gathered to see the best plan for expending those funds. Then you have regular special ed grants, and there are typical grants that we get, that we do receive every year. You will see balances again on some of these because they can roll over into subsequent years. So, and sometimes plans do change. Sometimes they have a planned expenditure for something that just could not come to fruition. It just could not be done for a variety of reasons. So it will roll over, and you're allowed to do that.
Courtney, do we have any grants from ESSER coming in, or is there anything else coming from the American Rescue Plans or SEL grants or anything like that?
Don't.
So, yeah.
What he's going to say, our grandkids are going to be paying for this.
Yeah, I know. Grandchildren and grandchildren. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. I've heard some rumblings out there.
Well, that's,
I know.
I had something from work
I know,
today.
both on, yes.
But nothing on the
various-
books.
Yes. No, I
So no votes are needed, right?
Nothing definitive yet.
No votes are needed on these?
No, these are just reports that I present, after we close out the year. And then the last page is just the student activity fund balances for savings accounts and checking accounts. So these are all the accounts that we have and that we reconcile as well with the town accountant. That's why we both sign off on it, that it's reconciled. Meaning the year has been closed.
Good job.
Does anyone have any other questions on these balances? And just so that you know, before I go over the rest of the things, Dr. Vieira and I still, in the next few weeks, we'll be meeting to look at, where the balances landed, looked at what happened over the summertime, things that came up that, we weren't expecting, we'll get the encumbrances in for payroll, which is a huge percentage of our budget, as you know, and we've had some staff changes, so ups and downs from what was originally budgeted. So we'll see the balances on all of that. And then, what I'll probably do is dump it in Excel, which I did last year, and just do projections, so that we can, so I can bring it to you, probably in November to take a look at where we are, get some more reporting this year. I apologize, I know last year was really a rough year. So, we want to get some more reporting so that you guys you can all be informed too as what's going on with the budget as we progress through the year, and anything that changes that we might make to the expenditures as well, or things that we've been able to incorporate because of savings, or the effect that increases in prices have had as well. So I did also provide to you, which I do every year, the school choice revolving fund and the circuit breaker, just to give you that historical trend. And the good news is on the circuit breaker, as you can see, I was actually able to put in that contingency line, which we couldn't do last year. So that was great, and I'm very happy to see where the fund balance ended, because we are getting some increases in special ed expenditures that were unanticipated. So that's going to assist us as well, because as you know, when I look at these two accounts, it's not just looking at FY22 and FY23, the current year we're in. I'm always thinking prospectively about, oh my goodness, how is this going to affect FY24? And what can we hang on to, or even better yet, add, as Dr. Vieira has talked to a number of times about things that we'd like to add to our district as well. Does anyone have any questions on those? At least you get to see a trend for a number of years on those. And then what I also provide each year is both the school lunch program and the preschool program, the financial historical trend. And, the preschool does go up and down. And again, you can see the example I gave you, where the first a teacher salary, and then it was a different staff person, so that was a big difference there. But we're still, holding our own, and I consider that a really good blessing for both this year and hopefully moving forward as we plan accordingly for the upcoming year, because it was so difficult to predict where we would be with COVID and everything. And with the price increases and everything, I even feel good about where we are right now. And again, we already spoke about school lunch program, but you can see the historical trend there as well. But these are just basically the closing documents. At least you'll see where we ended. And then, of course, we'll be presenting information on where we are and where I project us going for the end of the year to start planning for our FY24 budget process, which Dr. Vieira has informed me we're going to be starting soon. Which is fine.
Yes.
I'm ready for it.
Thank you.
Yes, very ready for it.
All right, so moving on, do we have any topics not anticipated?
You know what?
All right, so we'd be looking for a motion to adjourn at 8:37 PM.
Motion to adjourn, I move that we adjourn this meeting at 8:37 PM.
Second.
Motion made by Julie, seconded by Teresa. All those in favor?